Excellent. I'm grateful that you guys have come today. I was kind of worried people would like stop coming after I take a day off. For anyone who needs to know that my son, I called him child number 3 online because I knew there would be a bunch of side jokes if I put child number 2 on Facebook and in my emails. So he's actually the second oldest out of all 5 of our kids. And he's doing fine. He got bit by a scorpion that literally took 5 times to stomp on. Like the little thing just kept wriggling and wouldn't give up to his own death. So he's fine today. His foot feels better, and I'm able to resume. I will officially announce through an email and through Facebook that I'm moving the day 5 webinar to Saturday morning at 10 a.m. I was going to try and do it next week, but I realized that I will be meeting with my new school's team. More than likely, I'm also doing another presentation for NEA of Southern Nevada on the 21st. So my week is pretty full, on top of, if you guys are not aware, the school board is meeting again on Tuesday the 21st at 4 p.m. to discuss revamping and looking at the holes and gaps of the reopening schools plan, as well as looking at how do we meet the need of our students, and hopefully meeting the needs of our employees will be on that agenda as well. So if you have not done so already, please make sure that you have one tab open for your Canvas workroom, one tab open for the Google form. I will go ahead, thank you, Mel. Mel and I will be posting the Google form link into the chat screen as we are going through and trying to get everyone up onto making sure they have it up so they can participate throughout the session in a productive manner, so I can prove that you guys are working. Hopefully, again, that maybe we can get those hours of 10 hours total approved for you guys for CU's contact units on your PGP. If you have started filling out the form, please do not try to go too far, because the activities within our session today are actually aligned with the questions asked of you in the Google form. If you have not done so already, which it sounds like it has, people have muted their mics. Thank you very much. This is to avoid backfeed from your speakers into everyone else's speakers or headsets. If you have not done so already, on the Google Meet screen, go ahead and hover over my presentation and click on the little push pin to pin it to your screen so it will appear bigger in your screen. I just wanted to, again, thank you guys for joining me. I know it does take away a couple hours of your day every day, but I am grateful to see that there are plenty of people who are looking to get their toes wet in Canvas and kind of fiddle around with it before we dive into our extensive professional development at the beginning of the new school year. So today we are moving on to day 3. Again, please keep your mics muted. Stay on task within the webinar. If you're having side conversations, please keep them outside of the Google Meet room. Again, we have Mel Perrin-Smith in with us from Advanced Technologies Kenya or ATEC to help with specific technical questions in the chat as I'm presenting the engagement part of our webinar today. Again, thank you, Mel. If you guys would give her a thank you, it'd be greatly appreciated, because she offered to do this for us out of the goodness of her heart. I didn't reach out to her, she actually reached out to me, so thank you again, Mel. Again, come prepared each day. I do have homework at the end of the session that I give you guys. I also give it to you in your email. And if you're overwhelmed, please do not force yourself to sit through the next 2 hours with me and our colleagues. Feel free to exit and then wait for the recording and do it on your own time and your own pace. So you're given 2 options. You don't have to feel the need to stay in here just to get the participation certificate at the end. There are ways to deal with it. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to message me. You can message me in our work email, through the CCSD Gmail account, or through Facebook Messenger. Or some of you guys actually have my cell phone number. You can text me directly also. So we've pretty much covered the basic standards of how to navigate Canvas. You've set up your settings and notifications. You've set up a workroom all on your own, and you've learned how to navigate it. We dipped our toes into creating pages and assignments. I do apologize. It was very fast-paced for 2 of these components in Canvas. However, if there's one thing I've learned as a professional development facilitator is that you never want to go over more 2 to 3 hours max in a webinar or any type of training session. And if you want to learn these things specifically, they would have to be separate webinars or training sessions. So again, just remember, this is dipping your toes into Canvas. This is not necessarily 𝘒𝘢𝘳𝘢𝘳 giving you like the ins and outs of everything that's intricate within each part. If you're interested in learning more, you are free to reach out to me. I will be presenting webinars throughout the school year, especially towards the beginning of the school year, to help all of us kind of, I don't want to say get on the same page, because all of us will never be on the same page depending on what we teach, how we teach, and where we teach in the district. But to have the same skill set is basically what my mindset is. If every teacher has the same skill set to approach online and blended learning, we will all be better off for our students. Then creating content in your Google Drive. We're kind of going to go over that a little bit more today as well when you, or not today, tomorrow for live sessions on how to build a worksheet in Google Drive. I know when we did this for day 2, it was more of, I have a bunch of content in my Google Drive. How do I get it into Canvas? And I showed you guys how to hyperlink it. So just to give you guys an idea, with 2 days of dipping your toes into Canvas, we've pretty much stayed flat in where people are within their comfort zone of Canvas. So day 1, we were kind of like, I'm still lost up through, I'm getting it. I'll get it, and I'll continue to keep working at it. Day 2, we saw a little bit more engagement in level 3, which was more of, I'm getting it, and while there's still a lot to learn, you were willing to move forward. So hopefully today will help push us over more so into levels 3 and 4, where even for me personally, as a person that a lot of people are emailing me and telling me I'm the Canvas expert, I guess I can be a Canvas expert, but to be honest, I know there's still a lot more to learn. So even I'm a 4, where I know there's still more to learn, but I'm always willing to learn it. So if we can get everyone to 3s and 4s where they're getting it and they're comfortable with it and willing to learn more, we will be better off when we report back to work in August 5th. So for today, we're going to look at discussions and quizzes. We are going to fiddle with Flipgrid for a little bit, but not in the sense of you guys actually putting it in your workrooms today. It's more so of kind of like, this is something 𝘒𝘢𝘳𝘢𝘳 uses to engage the students, especially since I teach English and we have a speaking and language standards strands. So this is a good way to get students to engage face-to-face without being face-to-face. If you want to learn how to use Flipgrid more in depth, that's something you can leave in the comments of the evaluation portion of the Google form that you're filling out for today's activities to let me know. So if there's enough interest, then I can create a webinar / mini course for you guys to kind of work through with me to gain a better understanding on how to use Flipgrid in Canvas. And then from there, you guys will be better prepared to start looking at integrating online tools with your students. So let's go ahead and answer the first official question on your Google form. In what ways do you envision utilizing discussions within your online course? This can be literal or figurative, as well as including past experiences or creative ideas on how you want to use them. If you have experiences, whether it's in Canvas or in another specific format. So I know some people who are elementary use Class Dojo. I think that's more for parents though. I've only used it as a parent. I don't know if students can contact teachers in Class Dojo, but kind of think of how you would use these. It doesn't have to be thoroughly involved. It doesn't have to be a mini lesson plan for us. Oh, wow, some of you guys already did this. Awesome. That's another thing I'm going to try to remember to do, is to try to post up your guys' Padlet responses as we're answering the questions. Again, I did put on the upvote feature, so as you guys are waiting for us to move forward, feel free to upvote, feel free to comment. As a matter of fact, I'm encouraging comments today because we're going to also be discussing philosophies behind thoughtful responses and peer responses. So like for instance, I will show you guys a slide of what I present to my students, whether they're middle school or high school, online, about online discussions today, and how I go about explaining how to create those thoughtful responses. So go ahead and do that. Ooh, I like all these answers so far. Well, I like this one in the middle. I think this is a good, oh, it moved. Where'd it go? This one right here. Can I pin it? Oh, I can expand it. Where'd it go? Expand. All right. So I like this one right here because this is actually a really good point about classroom discussions with students online. I think class discussion is very important, and so should be an important part of online education also. It helps students to cement their feelings about a topic when they have to write or talk about it to others. It helps me know if they're understanding a topic, so act as a formative assessment. So definitely true. Most discussions should be formative assessments. However, when you're using something like Flipgrid, which again is a little more advanced, but I'm going to plug Flipgrid because one, I'm a firm believer and user of Flipgrid, and two, it is a free tool to us through Microsoft. So when you guys created your Flipgrid account, I don't know if you guys really understood that you guys can create so many things in there, different channels. Like at the middle school and high school level, you can have one Flipgrid channel per class period. For elementary, you guys can have different Flipgrid channels for like English, one for science, one for social studies, etc. And students don't have to necessarily just hold a discussion within Flipgrid on just a topic. They can present to you or form a verbal argument to you and their peers. So there's a way to use it as a summative assessment as well. But yes, definitely discussion should mostly be formative assessments. It's similar to doing like, I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fart. I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning. A check for understanding. You can even use it for a check for understanding, similar to like a Padlet, which again, I'm going to plug again. If you guys are interested in using Padlets in live sessions like this, or how to be creative with them and how to work with them, feel free to put that in your comments in the evaluation section of the evaluation form. So I like that. Oh, here's a good one right here. Hopefully it won't move. I think it's starting to slow down now. Use Padlet to post responses to novels. Use Flipgrid to present information. So there you go, such as how to or taking a side for argument writing. Good. So you guys are coming up with pretty much the basics of online discussions. I'm going to go ahead and move this way. So please don't forget to copy and paste your answer into the Google form. That way I can prove that you've been working through the webinar. So creating discussion. I've kind of already went over this, but I'll repeat it again. So in classrooms, we obviously lead them face to face. And we look to have expansion of thoughts and ideas, especially when we have them researching or utilizing textual evidence in some form. When they go to online discussion boards, this is where we go from discussions are amazing and holy cow, these kids are coming up with such amazing responses in the classroom to, yeah, I totally agree with that. Good job. Wow, that's an awesome statement. How many of us have seen that in grad classes as well? You know, like they're so basic responses, right? So part of our job as teachers is we have to remember, as we take on the online blended learning component and we move our discussions to online, we have to remember to teach the kids, our students, how to create the flow of conversation similar to what it would be face-to-face. It doesn't necessarily have to be through Flipgrid, but it can be done through the rules of engagement and thoughtful responses. So this is where Carlana is going to go into her philosophy of online discussions. You can feel free to take screenshots or pictures of what I'm showing you guys right now. Feel free to use verbatim. Like I was telling, some people had asked me for like, would I be giving you guys access to my templates or you know, things that I use? Since I'm creating this all on CCSD resources, feel free to use, steal, borrow, tweak, and make it your own. I don't mind. The reality is this is stuff we could find online and summarize it in our own words anyway. So feel free to use. So when we're looking at rules of engagement, we're looking at making sure that when we provide the prompt for discussions, we're specific and clear. Feel free to use steps. As a matter of fact, I've learned even with 11th and 12th graders, if I number their steps or bullet their steps, the more involved their responses will be. Teach what thoughtful responses are. I'm going to give you guys a rundown of what I normally teach my students at the beginning of the semester. Create a rubric that encourages peer responses. Now, this is the part that I'm not going to go over today because rubrics are their own beast in Canvas. I can show you a rubric that I've created for Google Classroom that can easily be inputted with a lot of copying and pasting into Canvas. But again, another plug for the evaluation forum. If you're interested in learning how to create rubrics and learning what's called mastery outcomes within Canvas, feel free to put that in your evaluation part of the Google form as well. And then, just like we expect our students to respond to at least 2 students within the discussions, we should be responding back to students as well within those discussions, not necessarily just on the back end, where we let them know, hey, you know, Johnny, what sort of textual evidence could you have used to support your response, claim, or ideas in this discussion? Do it out in the open so the students can see that, hey, she really is paying attention, or he is really looking to see if we're really sitting here discussing and being thoughtful within our responses. Normally, I'm super heavy in the first few weeks of a semester on responding to students on the front end. That's what I call the front end, when the students can see it. And then more so on the back end, I leave feedback for them individually on how to expand their responses. So it takes a little extra work, and it does take a lot of repetitive prompting with the student. But if you're consistent with it, students really get into the flow, at least for high school, probably a little bit more so hand-holding and reminding with middle schoolers. To be fair, I did see quite a few people asking this question on Facebook in the last few days. Can Canvas really be used at an elementary level? It could be, but if your school is going to say you can use Classroom, Google Classroom, that's more of an elementary school thing. The discussions for elementary school students, it would be harder for them to do. So using something like Flipgrid would probably be easier for students, because when they have to think it out loud for a discussion response and then put it on the screen, it can be a bit of a stifle for them. Whereas if they can just talk it out, even though they do the whole, and it's so cute because I have a 3rd grader, I'll have a 3rd grader this year, and I've been trying to work with him on his writing. And the one thing I'm trying to get him out of is, and then, next, and then, next. So he likes to use the same transitions, and I'm trying to help him to find those different transitions. If we can prompt them to verbally use different transitions, it becomes innate in their inner voice when they write. So something with Flipgrid for elementary level would probably be more so a good engagement tool for discussion. But that's my personal opinion. So thoughtful responses. This is what I tell my students, and this is what I pretty much, I hate using the word harp because it sounds harsh, but I do harp on this a lot because, again, you're not really expanding discussion if you're saying, yeah, I totally agree with that, and then leave it at that. Well, what do you totally agree with? That's literally what I use as feedback. What do you totally agree with? I'll use their words right back at them. What do you totally agree with? What prompted you to stop at this specific response and comment to this specific classmate? And that's how I engage them in rubrics of feedback to get them to expand their responses. So always tell them, don't just agree or disagree or like or dislike. So, you know, explain why you've come to this conclusion. How did you come to this conclusion? I always tell students, whether they're writing their discussion prompts or those critical pieces where we have to have those constructive feedback, or not constructive feedback, constructive written responses every once in a while that we must use to gauge where they are within their writing. I tell them, if I have to ask the how or why, you did not do what you were supposed to do on your end to prove to me your position on your claim with your ideas. Then I tell my students, don't just pick the first two pure responses you see in the screen. Kind of take your time and look through them, skim through them, and see what stands out to you. But also take in what your peers are sharing with you. When you're responding, you should be using evidence. So look at textual evidence whenever possible, especially like in English. Excuse me. Hold on, I need to pause 1 second. I don't want to cough in your guys' ears. Sorry about that. I always tell them, if you are not given the means to, you know, because in most cases, I normally prompt and say, please use textual evidence. I'm sorry, hold on. I'm sorry about that. And then looking at examples of self to world, self to text, or even just personal examples. Not every discussion is going to tie directly into what we're specifically and narrowly doing within a topic. Sometimes we do ask discussion questions or questions in the classroom that kind of engage them into the topic, like, have you ever experienced being locked out of your house? How would that, you know, correspond to being locked out of visiting somewhere else in regards to maybe like immigration laws or something like that? And again, I'm just pulling that off the top of my head. Please don't think I'm looking for something specific with that. But then also I remind my students this is a discussion. When we have discussions, it normally doesn't just stop with someone says something, someone responds back. A discussion is a back and forth. So how do we expand our discussions is normally through a question. So then I ask them to follow up with a question that expands a response from the person they're responding to with a how and or why. And then that's how they go back and forth with thoughtful responses. Again, feel free to take a screenshot or a picture of this. Use this word for word if you want. I do not mind. Oops. So I tried something new today in our Google Meet. If you exit, I think, hold on, where would I find it? It did not attach in here. Okay. So you guys are going to want, hold on 1 second. I see someone chatting. Yes, I have used, are you speaking to an email about discussions in the platform of Canvas? Yes, I've used both Flipgrid and regular discussion boards, and we're going to go over the regular discussion boards today in a little bit. What I want to do, I need to find the link for this and put it in the chat screen for you guys. So this is a framework for phases of engagement in online classes. And let me come over to BitLink really quick and see if I have it over here. I don't think I do. No, so let me copy and paste this. What you guys can do is, I'm gonna put this in the chat screen. I believe I have this in the Google form also. Let me check the Google form really quick. If not, I'll put it in there. I did not, so let me put that in there. You know what? I'll send it out through the email. The question's long enough already. I don't want to put more in there. All right, so this is phases of engagement in online classes. I received this from a professor at UNLV. This is actually something that they give to their professors when they're teaching their hybrid online courses. So if you'll notice, this is actually applicable to us as well. This is based on a semester course. So they thought of the student role and had divided it into 5 phases of a semester: connection, communicating, collaborating, co-facilitating, and then continuing forward. When we're looking at this, I liked how they added in the instructor role. So this actually does help us become facilitators at first, but then it kind of engages us to become a back-end person for the students by the time they get used to discussion. Notice the weeks though. So when we're looking at connecting phase, we're looking at having students only engage in online discussions that are pretty simplistic between weeks 1 and 2. So we're easing them into how to use online discussions, how to, thank you, Mel, I appreciate it, easing them into different ways to use the discussion. So I love this specific infographic because if you look down towards the bottom, it tells you specific examples of how to move forward in the phases of engagement for online discussions, how we should be approaching with objectives within those discussions. Again, if you want a copy of this, just download it by using the arrow down into an inbox tray so you have it for your own records. You can also, I believe, no, you cannot. Actually, I can't tell on this end. I don't know if you could click the triple stack dots and it might say add to drive. I'm not sure if it does that, but you could definitely at least download this PDF so you have it for your own interests. Personally, I never, even as an online teacher for the last 10 years, I've never really thought of it in this manner before because I've never been taught this. So when I saw this, I was like, this is how I'm going to do all my online discussions, whether it's Flipgrid or not, for this upcoming school year, because it does make sense in the process behind how to format our online discussion. So that's just for your own knowledge. Thank you, Jan, for letting me know. So Jan said that we can, when we open the document from the link, and let me post it in here again, so people have access to it and don't have to scroll up, you can add it to your Google Drive. So thank you for letting me know, Jan. Oh, thank you, guys. I appreciate the thanks for the resource. And it really is a good resource. It is simplistic enough for it not to be overwhelming for us as teachers, but it is informative enough to kind of give us an idea of how to move through the process of online discussions for the upcoming school year, especially if you've never really taught with online discussions before. At some point, most of us have done online discussions as students, but to create and facilitate online discussions is a whole beast in itself. All right, so let's go ahead and have you guys take a couple minutes to review the framework on your own for online discussions, and then kind of think of how you would engage your students through your curriculum and pacing. So what I want you guys to do is come up with one idea per phase of engagement. And I'm going to go ahead and pop up this screen for the Padlet and explain it really quick. So you'll see that in this Padlet, this is different from any other Padlet you guys have done with me this week. This one, I've given you guys the phases of engagement. And then what you guys are going to do is click on the little plus sign under each category. And you're just going to give me a quick idea. They don't have to be overly involved, you guys. It does not have to be in complete sentences. Just whatever comes to mind, pop it up there. If possible, could you let me know ES for elementary, MS for middle school, and HS for high school, so we kind of differentiate between what people are popping up? That would be great. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a few minutes to do that so I can drink some water and kind of take a breath here. If I'm going too fast, I do see some people's faces up on the screen. kind of wave me down. That I can see on the corner of my eye from my two screens I have in front of me. Just kind of let me know. I do know that I do go fast. But again, remember, we only have 2 hours together. So the best thing for you to do is write your questions down on a piece of paper. And then if I can answer it when I pause for certain things, I will. If not, save it to the end. And then I always stay a little bit later to help you guys out at the end. So I'll go ahead and give you guys a few minutes to do this. And I will let you know in about 4 minutes if people are still writing to wrap up. All right, I'll give you guys another minute to finish up your last spot. If you are unable to get into phase 4 or 5, that's fine. 4 and 5 are more long-term goals anyway when it comes to online discussion. But what I'm noticing here is that you guys are coming up with creative ideas for us to break the norms of discussions and actually take what we normally would do for small group work in our classrooms, which will be obsolete with social distancing this year. How many of us are looking forward to learning just on our own 6 feet apart with our students? But you guys are becoming creative in how you guys would go about doing this. So like, for instance, right here, oops, no, that's not what I meant to do. I think I just, there it goes, it's bumped. Okay, so someone had posted here, students will work through a lit circle while facilitating learning and encouraging collaboration. This is definitely a good way to creatively use discussions. So it's not always the same boring, like, Ms. K gave me a discussion prompt and now I have to just respond to it with textual evidence. And no, this is now the students are actually taking on my role as a teacher, which is a good phase 3, where they should be starting to facilitate their own discussions, but you're giving them minimum prompting. So the lit circle itself, we've been teaching our students, middle school and high school level. Students know what lit circles are. At the elementary school level, I'm going to take a gander, considering I have to constantly prompt my third grader a lot. And when I had my other children being younger, it takes a lot of repetitive prompting. But at this level for middle school and high school, they already understand the concept of lit circles. So they already know that there are going to be roles involved that they take on. They already understand that they have to be looking at the novel or short story or whatever literary work that they're using is to be included in their responses. And then they're bouncing back and forth on each other, probably utilizing the roles given to them in a lit circle already. So just a reminder of those lit circle roles would be sufficient enough for them to be able to facilitate their discussion. So this is definitely a good example of how to utilize an online discussion board as basically an assignment in itself, because normally I know I do, thank you, I'm going too fast for some. I know that for me, when I did lit circles in class, I would have students fill out certain forms for their role and submit it as an assignment. Well, now you can see it just unfold in a discussion board, minimizing how much you actually have to grade, and then you would be able to grade with feedback in what's called speed grader. Speed grader is where you would basically enter the score and feedback and use a rubric for students to see how well they did on their assignment. Because I do not have a live class to show you guys how to use speed grader, unfortunately, I will not be able to do that with you guys in the webinar series at this time, just in case anyone asks. All right, so thank you for sharing your ideas. I appreciate it. I'm sure your peers appreciate it also. So let's go ahead and look at, first we're going to look at what discussions are. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to quickly do that. So we're going to go through me showing you guys discussions. You'll notice the window is similar to when you guys looked at building pages and assignment pages within a course. The tools are always going to be pretty much similar when you're creating content outside of quizzes and tests inside of Canvas. You're going to have the same editing window, mostly the same editing tools. It's going to be pretty similar, so it should be a little bit more comfortable for you guys to do. Now, I have this little blip down here, and I'll explain it. But just in case, in your Google form that I gave you guys to work with on today throughout the series, or excuse me, the session today, I gave you guys actual prompts and hyperlinks to engage in what I'm about to show you. So this specific topic is something that's already pre-done in one of, I think it's the English 9 content from CCSD Commons and Canvas. So again, Commons is over here. This is where you can download content from grades 6 through 12 to help you kind of build your course if you don't want to build it from scratch on your own. We went over this the other day. So when we're looking at the prompt, again, this is not my prompt, but you notice that it's laid out in a manner that is functional. It has headers. It does use little emojis to kind of prompt the students to understand what they're doing. This is something that I would create as a template within my course and then change it every time a new discussion is being created. And here's the reason why. Just like headers, using the little emoji icons helps students understand specific information being pushed to them, just like the headers, just like the dividers. So right here is what I gave you guys in your Google form. If this is something you want to utilize, so you do not have to recreate on your own, which this is what Online Blended Learning Department does within their courses that they put in Canvas Commons, is that they put this at the bottom of every discussion. So I gave you the information in your Google Drive to do the same when you build your discussion. What you'll do is, you know what, I'm not going to do this one. I'm going to walk you guys through the creating of a discussion. I'm sorry. So what I want you guys to do is go into your, excuse me, your workroom And then on the course navigation sidebar, I want you to go ahead and click on discussions. Depending if you've already imported content from Canvas Commons, you may have some discussions in here, and that's fine. What you're going to do is you're going to create your own discussion. Before we do that though, you'll notice that there's a section called Pin Discussions. These are the ones that students will always be able to see if they were given access to the discussions link. However, let's see if anyone remembers what I said the other day. Why would students not have access to links like discussions, quizzes, assignments, files, and pages in the course? Or which mode of navigation should students really use to progress in a course? Excellent. Yes, students should work through the modules tab, at least per my philosophy, and VLA does the same philosophy as well, because students can access every type of assignment through modules tab, as well as it pushes them through a sequential order. In the order you want them to work in, they should work through modules. However, sometimes even as teachers, like if you think right here, if we build a whole course, we build a whole course in our workroom, or even if we just have a class open that we're grading through, and we just want to look at discussions, a lot of these add up, right? So if we want specific ones to be up here to access at all times, so for instance, maybe like an introductions, or a lot of us have taken grad courses online. In our grad courses, we've always seen like a pin post by our instructor or professor where you could ask the instructor a question, right? You could pin that up here. You would simply go to your discussions and look at the three stacked dots, click on it, and then you could pin it to the top. If you are savvy enough and remember to change everything necessary for each discussion, so this is where a template would come into good use. You can also duplicate your discussions so they all have the same clean manner of appearance each time. You could also assign master paths to them, or even share them into comments. But again, normally when you're doing this, you're pinning it. You're normally not using the three stacked dots. Let's go ahead and create a discussion. Go ahead and click on the plus discussion blue button. And again, I'll go over the screen again before I let you guys do the nitty-gritty part. So this is the editing window right here at the top above the post to. The post to part, unless you get super savvy with how many workrooms you're using or courses, it's best not to touch this, especially when you start getting courses attached in Canvas that are linked to Infinite Campus. Don't touch this. Otherwise, there could cause problems in your gradebook. You have your title, you have your toolbar, which again, this is your font sizes, the types of font and how big you want them placed into the editing box. Bold, italics, underline, text color, highlighting of text color, superscript or subscript, alignment, bulleting, indenting, changes of paragraph indentation, using hyperlinks, inserting images, uploading and recording media, uploading documents, which, let's do another check and see if we remember. Should we be uploading documents into our courses? Why not? Or why? Space. I like that. No, you guys only get 500 megabytes of space. And I just found out yesterday because I was looking at possibly offering like Canvas courses, but not on CCSD Canvas site, because then I can't charge like $5, $10 a person to do that, to help with, you know, compensation for my time. But I found out students only have 50 megabytes of space for themselves on their end. So if they're constantly doing stuff in Canvas that is not attached to an assignment, they get 50 megabytes. That's crazy. So always hyperlink documents. Always try to keep it to where they're doing their Google Drive, where they have a lot more space, and we have a lot more space when we work in Google Drive. Then adding tables, which I'm going to show you guys how to kind of, how many of us like to have things aligned and pretty, sometimes centered, things have their place, right? How many of us are like that? I know I'm like that. Tables are my friends in Google Drive documents and in Canvas. Now here's the thing, you want to keep it in simple tables when you use them. And when I say simple tables, this means, and some people are super savvy about this, I don't know if that pertains to anyone in this webinar session or anyone watching the live stream, but some people are able to do tables inside of a table inside of a table. You don't want to do that in Canvas, because then it's hard for accessibility readers, for like our blind students or those that use screen readers. They don't read tables inside of a tables inside of a tables. However, screen readers that read text to speech for students will read simple tables. So just building a simple table, and I'll show you guys how to do that in a couple minutes, to help align things and put things in its place. That will be super helpful for you guys to kind of make it pretty and your own and personalized, using those images that coordinate and connect with the text that you're putting in there. And then this is more so for like outside of like those little icons that I showed you guys right here. Like these icons, it's outside of that. These are simple like emojis you can insert with the text. I'm talking about more like images, and I'll show you guys that in a minute. Again, if you're a math teacher, you can input math equations. I am not an expert on that. I know Mel had said something about, yes, you can do that, but I don't know if she's knowledgeable about that and using the math equations plugin. And then, of course, if you've included any any resources that were the external apps in your settings part of your course, the plug-in, which looks like a little plug on a cord, can be used. Now, I know you guys just saw me expand this window over here, so let me show you guys how to do that really quick. This window is super small and super annoying, especially when you start building with tables. So if you see this little, I call it the editor up and down. If you see these two lines of stacked dots and you hover over it, it will now show you the up and down arrow. If you hold it down, you can drag the screen down as big as you need to, so you have more space to work with. Now, let's go ahead and look at creating a simple table. So if I were to do this, normally I put in an emoji, like a Bitmoji, or an image that goes with the text that I want them to like utilize, like, you know, kind of like, oh yeah, this is about Romeo and Juliet, or this is about the Great Gatsby discussion. So what you do is you hover over the table, click on it, and to create the table, you hover over table, and just like in Google Drive or Microsoft Word, you can hover over to how many you need. Personally, you only need two on one row. So one row, 2 columns, and I'll show you why in a moment. So right now, if you click out of the table, you'll see these lines. I personally don't like the lines because it distracts from the text and what I want the students to do. So if you want to make the lines disappear, click back in your table, and you'll notice that this menu pops up right underneath your table. Go to Table Properties, which looks like the table button up in the toolbar. And then you'll see down here, border width. Just take it out. You don't even have to put a 0, just take it out. And then click Save. So when you click out, you'll see there are dotted lines instead. The dotted lines are there for you to edit and to add in, but when you save it, you'll notice that there are no lines when you save it. So that means that you see these dotted lines you can edit on your end, but the student end and the finished published product end will not show the dots. So like I said, I like to use Bitmojis a lot when I'm engaging with the students, especially in this matter. For you guys, if you have a random picture on your end that you probably have in your downloads, or maybe a picture that you've used, or if you're super hoarder of pictures in general and you have stuff that you've already used in years past, feel free to follow along and add in a picture as I'm doing so. So you make sure you're in, well, first of all, you would want to think about which side of the discussion prompts and instructions you want your picture on. In most cases, pictures end up being on the left side. If you want to be different, put it on the right side. Either way, click in either box you want your picture in. Just click in it, and then come up to the picture, and then go to Upload Image. Now, if you don't have an image, Unsplash is part of Canvas with images now. Unsplash is a royalty-free picture image site. So you just click in the search term box, and it'll start popping up different pictures underneath that you can use. You don't have to attribute these in here because, again, they're royalty-free. Even though we're in a closed environment, we have to be super careful about copyright infringement. Always, always, always. Now, Bitmojis are considered royalty-free as well because they're tailored to you and your likeness. If you're using clip art, make sure that you own the licenses to those. Outside of that, make sure you use royalty-free, or if you're using Google image searches, make sure you're using what is it called? It's something similar where you use, can use with modifications, anything that allows you to be able to use it with modifications or just on your own general, then those are the pictures you can use. If it does not allow you to, and if it's not a Creative Commons license sort of deal, public domain, so like for instance, if you take pictures from Wikipedia or Wikimedia, those you don't have to attribute, those are royalty free. If you're taking them from Flickr, then you need to look for Creative Commons licenses, and it'll literally tell you Creative Commons on them. So be super careful about your pictures. I cannot tell you how many lawsuits CCSD has to deal with every school year in regards to teachers utilizing information on the internet that has not been attributed to public domain or Creative Commons use. So anything that includes, if you're using stuff from Teacher Pays Teacher, you can use it in your own course like every year to teach with your students. But you cannot turn around and use it as your own outside for any sort of payment. You kind of have to look at it that way with images as well. That's why I tell people to build their worksheets in Google Drive, because then if you take something from Teachers Pay Teacher, then tweak it to meet your teaching style and your student needs, then you can use it in any ways possible you can with your students and peers. So there is that. If you have a direct URL, so like for instance, like if you're taking it from Google Drive, you can do that, but you want to try to not do that again with copyright infringement. Plus, just like YouTube, sometimes those pictures get taken down. And if this is something you want to use long term, you don't want something in your course that could possibly be changed by someone else. You want to try to keep as much control within you and your course and your workshops, so you don't have to deal with outside entities taking things down, taking things away that you no longer have access to, which is why I come back to looking at images. Since you have, images don't take up as much room as documents. So you can put as many images in your course within the 500 megabytes, you'll be fine. I've put pictures on everything in a course and never went over 500 megabytes. It's only when you add documents. So please do not add documents. So I'm going to go ahead and find a picture I can use. Let's see. So this is one of my pictures I use for like introductions because I am from Hawaii. And you just insert it in. And I'll go ahead and go through that again. One of my goals throughout the remainder of my webinar series is to make sure I try to do it at least twice. So make sure you click into your table, choose which side of your table you want to insert your image. Go up to insert image and upload the image. And then you can drag your image in. Once it's loaded, click on submit. And then it will load in your table. So this is where you guys can start getting a little creative with your own stuff. And if you want to work ahead and you kind of have these skills already, that's fine. Go ahead and work ahead and start building your discussion. Do not feel you have to follow with me step by step if you have a little bit more technology skills than me going step by step slowly. What you can do with your picture is you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. My suggestion is when you try to look at staying in the same screen, so you want to try and make sure that you stay in the same screen for the students so they don't have to scroll left and right. You only want students to scroll up and down. And not every student has widescreen computers. I do know some of the CCSD laptops used in the district still have about like the I don't want to say 800 by 600, but that's the closest pixel range I'm thinking of at this time. Plus, we don't really need to have this image too big. So you can actually drag it in smaller and then make it smaller. Now, here is a pro tip for everyone. I'm sure there's some people like, okay, there's all this space between this image and the end of this box. Notice that when I went to the middle line, it pops up the left and right arrow. You can actually drag this over so you have more space for text on one side. Now, if you want to center the image in the middle of the text box, which I normally do, make sure that your image is highlighted, come up to alignment, and drop it down to center. Notice that this picture moves to the center of this specific cell in your table. Now it's pretty, it's perfect, it's aligned. And then now we can go ahead and add your text in. So this is where you would build out the steps of your discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here for about, let's go ahead and say about 10 minutes. If you finish before 10 minutes with your discussion, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but go ahead and just kind of outline what your prompt would be, outlining what your steps would be. I'll go ahead and post up like the discussion that I was playing with earlier that was already done. I'll post it back up on the present screen so you guys have like an idea of how to utilize things. In regards to something I will tell you right now, let me go ahead and switch screens really quick to show you what I'm going to talk about. In regards to if you want to become this fancy, the dividers, this can be built in tables also. I can show you guys, for those that want to do this, I can show you this really quick after I let you guys go for 10 minutes of working in your discussion. I can show that to you really quick. But this can be built as a table as well. So if you wanted something similar like this, without the picture, if you don't feel the need to have a picture for your table, this would be a 1 column and 1, 2, 3, 4, and then maybe have the links separate 5 rows. And I'll show you guys this in a little bit. Now, as you're working through here and you start getting towards the end of building your pretty part of the discussion, you can come down here and you'll notice at the bottom of the post to attributes, you'll see that there are options of how to move forward in this discussion. You'll want to allow threaded replies from students because that's the point of discussion, to go back and forth. But it is super important to click on users must post before seeing replies. Obviously, we do not want 30 of the same specific type of responses to our discussion post prompt. This forces the students to think, look at your prompt, create their response to your prompt, and then post before they go on to their 2 peer responses, or how many ever you decide to use. Excuse me. So you are eliminating the means of getting 30 plus of the same or similar responses. And then graded, obviously. If you want to do like a Facebook or social media type of allowing them to like, that's fine. But then you can do it by just allowing them to do it, or only you can do it. I personally don't allow them to do that because most of the time they'll tell you in the responses to each other, you know, we're making them wanting to do more of the, let's look at the ideas and claims and discuss what we like or didn't like, agree or disagree with that way. So I leave that out. You can do group discussions. What this does is it pulls the students into smaller groups. So when you click on that, it lets you know how to set up the groups. Self-assign is really good. It randomly does it itself in Canvas, or you can manually do it yourself. And then you could create manually, or you can split students evenly and randomly into specific number of groups. And then it'll separate into specific members and based on that number. Possible points. Again, this is more of the assignment settings of the discussion. So you're looking at how you want it set up. I normally do the points, get the points, so they can see like 15 out of 20 or something similar like that. Assign it to the assignment group. So this is something that I'll be going over later on in a different webinar where we look at how to do graded and weight categories, where I'll be doing a quick screencast of how to show you guys how to do that. Peer reviews, this is a little bit more involved. It's similar to the group discussions, but then it forces only one person to do that. I personally like 2 responses for students, so I don't use this in discussions. And then make sure you put your due date and stuff like that when you're doing your regular coursework. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to build the table to allow for these dividers and headers. So anytime you want to, say like for instance, you're creating a table in the screen and you realize you don't want it, you don't have to highlight it all and delete it. When you're in the table, this specific toolbar for tables pops up automatically. You can delete the whole table itself, and it'll remind you as you hover over what each are. So delete the table. You can add a row above, a row below, delete just rows. You can add a column to the left, a column to the right, or a column out completely is being deleted. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and delete this column right here where I have my image. And then now that I have one, but I want 5 of these rows, you just hover into the table and then just click on the insert row after. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then now we have the 5 rows. So when we're looking at the dividers, we see that the divider is it's under prompt and instruction. So prompt, it has information about the prompt, instructions, and then so what you want to do is remember how we had removed all the borders for the table itself, but now we want to put a border on this bottom line of the first row. So you're going to click on that line. Well, no, it won't do that. So click in the first cell the first row, and then what you're going to do is you're going to click on table property, and let's see, advanced. Oh, it might not let me do it in here. Okay, so it won't let me do it in here. So I believe, let me look at this really quick. I think this is an HTML thing in which that's above what we're trying to do today. If you do have HTML experience, which some people do, you'll notice right here next to our window expander, let's call it that, I like that better, the window expander for editing, you'll notice that there are the caret bottoms and a slash. This will switch you from, this is called a rich text editor to an HTML editor. Okay, so I'm not sure how they added in that divider. I wonder if it's a, I think they did it through HTML. So let's go ahead and do this. This is going to be the workaround. Just for this cell, let's see if it'll let us do it just for that cell. No. All right. So I apologize. I'm willing to admit I'm human. I have no idea how to insert it in here without doing HTML, and I would have to look up HTML. So for just now, work for the next few minutes and building. If you have questions, I'm going to start going through. Looks like Mel did a lot of these. So thank you, Mel. I appreciate it. Mel is awesome, isn't she? She's super, super cool to come help me and give up some of her free time along with me to help you guys out today. So let's go ahead and look at the question. If you're working and I'm rattling my head off and distracting you, feel free to turn off your headset or speakers or put it down on low until about 11:10, and then we'll come back and work from here. I think I forgot to put a question in here. I did. So I'm going to probably need you guys to refresh your Google Drive. Oh, no, you can't refresh. Oh, I know what I can do. I will do a workaround. Just like when we're in the classroom and something comes up, think on the fly. I'm going to create a Padlet that only I have access to after today, because you guys will close out the window, to grab those URLs for your discussion so I can show that you guys are working along with me in the webinar. Okay, so I'm going to insert another link into the Google Meeting, and I'll keep doing it as people are asking questions. Yes, this is what I'm going to do right now. Thank you, Carol Monderas, for asking. After we make our discussions, do you want us to put it somewhere? That was the one question I forgot to add in your Google Forms today. Normally, when you guys complete something like this for me, I ask for the direct link to it, and I forgot to add that question in. So this Padlet right here that I just put into the chat screen will do that for me. Please remember to give me your first and last name, and then the link to your discussion. So remember, after you save it, you'll come up to the top here where your web address bar is. Click in it, and I need this highlighted, copy and pasted into the Padlet, and I will manually put it into your Google Drive form so I can show that you've been working along with the webinar. You're welcome. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and scroll up a little. Looks like No, you've been killing it with the questions. Thank you. Jamie, my graded does not allow me to add, and I have added to student to do. I'm not sure what you're explaining to me, Jamie Grop, or Grop. I'm sorry if I misspelled it or misstated it. So I'm going to say Grop because it's phonetic. If it's Grop, let me know. I'm sorry, Jamie. Can you rephrase your question or explain to me what you're telling me is not working for you? Yes, Michelle, I'm giving you a few minutes. Michelle Freeland, if you still need more, just let me know. If you guys need a little more time, let me know. Quizzes are not as involved as discussions. So if we need a few more minutes on discussions, just let me know in the chat screen a few more minutes, and I can give you a few more minutes, and we can work until 11:15 on your discussion. Jamie Grapp, do you also still need me to show you how to take the border out again? Because I didn't see that while I was talking. Okay, and then Jenna needs, where do I search for an image? Kimberly, you do not need to CP anything in the Google form right this second. Instead, it needs to go in this Padlet link, which I'm about to post again. Remember to give me your first and last name and your discussion URL so I can add it into your Google form. So I'll be adding the link into your Google form responses. You will not be doing this part in your Google form responses. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show how to take out borders on a table. All right, so I believe Jamie was the one that asked about borders on a table. All you do is click into the table, and the table bar will pop up at the bottom. Go to Table Properties, go down to Border Width, click in the box, take out the 1, and then click Save. If you do not want to use tables, that's fine, Maria. You don't have to. This is more for people who like to have a little bit more structure, and they're, I'm sorry to say this, but I am super anal about it, so I'm sure I'm not the only one who are super anal about how things are aligned and how it looks pretty and how everything has a spot. That's for those people. If you don't care about using the tables and you know what you want to do and how to move forward with it, feel free to do it that way. I'm not looking for tables in general. That's just to help people who like things in a specific order and a specific manner. Inserting pictures. So I don't remember who asked. Oh, Jenna. Jenna asked me about looking for pictures. You go up to here and insert picture, upload image. I'll give you guys one more minute to work in your discussion, and then click on Unsplash, and then click in the search box under search term, and then choose whichever search term or phrase you want to have Unsplash pull for your images. Erin, once you're done, so like after you save and publish or save, I'm going to cancel out of this because I did this. So you come up here to the web address bar, and like I said, like I said yesterday, you'll notice that the link will show discussion topics and a number. That's the number unique to your discussion. Make sure you copy and paste this whole link into the Padlet for me. Again, remember to give me first and last name and your link so I could put it manually into your Google form responses. No worries, Disha. It doesn't really matter. Since this is just a workroom you're playing around in, Melissa, you could feel free to save and publish or save. Save and publish just means that whoever has access to your workroom as a student will be able to see it. I'm the only person in your workroom. I can see it. Unless you made me a student, then you need to publish it so I can see it. Streaming has stopped. Why? That's weird. All right, streaming will start soon. That was weird. Okay, now it's live again. So I apologize to anyone who's following in the live stream. Google Meet kicked out the live stream, but it should be back on now. Again, I'm sorry. All right, Danielle, I need you to put that in the Padlet, please. Danielle Palmer. I'm going to go ahead and put the Padlet link again in the chat screen. Go ahead and put that in the Padlet so I have access to it in an easier format after today to do your certificate of participation. Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and come back into the live session screen. In the chat screen, please tell me I'm here so I know that I can switch screens and move forward. Hello. All right, so discussions. As I said recently throughout this webinar session, I am a big advocate of Flipgrid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my present screen so you guys can listen to this quick Flipgrid video about how to utilize it to give students their powerful voice behind their assessments and their assignments. Again, this is not something I'm going to go overly in depth with. It's just more of me kind of sharing why I use it. And then if this is something you would like to learn more about with my assistance and help in the evaluation part of your Google form, let me know you're more interested in how to use Flipgrid and how to use it in Canvas. Or even just on its own outside of Canvas. I can, you know, it's not that hard. Sometimes it just needs a little more of just a little hand holding for some people with tech skills that are not as strong as others. So let's go ahead and listen to this video. I'm going to switch my screen. It's best practice to let your students know, and I'm going to go through this again when I go through live sessions tomorrow. Let your students know you're switching through different screens so they don't think something's wrong on their end. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my microphone, and we're going to watch this video together.
It is amazing to watch what kids will say to a computer screen that they won't say to a teacher. There's a level of honesty that comes out from kids. You see more of their natural side, or sometimes more of their personality comes out when they're making a video. It's very personal. A lot of kids who are timid to speak directly to a person will share all kinds of things on a Flipgrid. So to me, it's a tool that very easily lets kids have a voice and be heard with very little work on the side of the teacher other than asking the question and giving the space for that question to be answered.
One of the things that I think librarians have been in the vanguard about is using technology in authentic ways, not just for consuming, but for creating. The authenticity of video and voice really helps build community and relationships. And relationships are what it's all about. Learning happens best when there are relationships between the faculty member, the instructor, and the students, and among the students. It was Maslow that said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We've got a more powerful toolkit than ever before, and we can use it to create and make a difference in our world. So I want my students to go out there and model that in the K-12 environment, and I want their students to be able to create and participate in powerful ways.
I was looking for an application where I could use technology inside the classroom as well as outside of the classroom for students to speak their math thinking, and then hopefully have other students follow their same process. So most recently in my classroom, I took the math practices and focused on perseverance and understanding problems. Each group then was responsible to record a response that was moderated by myself, so they didn't have the opportunity to see any other student responses on Flipgrid until I unlocked those videos. And students now have gone back into the Flipgrid app and are watching videos and filling out a feedback form. The application and the use of technology has allowed for me to break down the four walls in my classroom. Instead of being able to critique just the students in that particular class in those 45 minutes, I'm having students critique across the 95 students on my team. It allows the students to see that sometimes those regular lower level students, in terms of what their ability appears to be, they're actually communicating their process much better than the kids who get the math very quickly.
When we first created Flipgrid, we focused primarily on the interaction between teachers and students to amplify student voice. What we found is that teachers use the environment to share their best practices and stories with other teachers around the world.
It's been a tool that really helps students get their voice to the forefront, and it has really been something that's been a catalyst for bringing dialogue back into the classroom.
We're in the selfie generation. These kids don't mind looking at a camera and practicing their English over and over and over again. They actually have fun. I've had students who are really shy in the classroom. They really liven up in front of the camera.
We love Flipgrid, and the reason why is because it allows our students to express themselves in their native language, American Sign Language, and communicate with each other instead of having to type everything in English, which is their second language.
I don't know if it was sucky on your end with the streaming. I apologize if it was. I'm not sure how that works on your side. I just know this is a new feature, again, that I found that in Google Meet, you can actually share tabs within Google Chrome. You have to be in Google Chrome, though, in order to be able to hear and see a video at the same time. If it was slow and glitchy, I do apologize for that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen again. So Canvas. Let's talk about types of quizzes we can create within our courses. So I know in Google Classroom, we're kind of limited in what we can create in Google Forms for the quizzes. This is another reason why I like using Canvas more, because a lot of times students get bored, and I know I do as well, with just the multiple choice, true and false, fill in the blank. Canvas allows you a few more different types of questions in order to engage your students in an assessment. Normally in Canvas, these would be summative assessments. So we were looking at, kind of making sure that they're able to switch their skills and answer in different ways. Personally, you can do an essay question in the quiz. However, especially in middle school and high school, a lot of students like to copy and paste outside of the course and put it in and say, hey, my name is Johnny and these are my ideas, even though from Wikipedia. And you could tell because it'll copy and paste in the hyperlinks as well. I personally want to be able to look at their answers in a different way, see how they've been editing it. I normally make essay questions for quizzes and tests separate in a document and a separate assignment. And I make that a summative assessment as well. Totally up to you, but it is hilarious to see how students think that they can copy and paste into the essay portion or any written response type of deal in Canvas quizzes, and it literally picks up every hyperlink. If it's been bolded or italicized or underlined in the original web source, it pops up, and it's a big indicator of whether they're actually answering on their own, because we all know kids are not that savvy. And hey, look, Miss K is going to see this and know that I put a lot of thought into this because I put this in bold and italics. doesn't normally work that way for students at their levels of skills and thinking. So with these in mind, I want you guys, no, not just yet. Hold on one second. Let me check my Google form. Yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and go back into Canvas. And in your workroom, on the course navigation sidebar, go ahead and click on quizzes. And then when you get to there, go to the plus quiz blue button and click on that. And I'll walk you through the process here. So for now, I want you guys to work in classic quizzes. New quizzes is for people with a little bit more tech savvy skills within Canvas. They're comfortable with Canvas. They know how to tweak it and modify it to meet their needs. In most cases, you all will be using classic quizzes, so we're going to use classic quizzes from this point forward. If you wish to only stick with Canvas quizzes in your workroom, you can choose to keep that as a default and check mark this moving forward. It will just pop up without having to ask this question each time. And then click submit. Let's go ahead and discuss the editing part of the quizzes. So there's two sides to quizzes. There's the editing part where you can add the instructions and the quizzes and master pathways, which we're not going to cover because that's its own separate beast. Today we're going to look at quizzes of details and questions. The details is the instruction part of your quiz. This is basically the page that shows the instructions prior to them clicking on start quiz, and they move forward into the question. You want to be specific and super clear in your quiz instructions. You can add the title. And when you come down here, you see there are several different types of settings you can use. So you can have a practice quiz, which means they'll practice it, though it's still the same format as a regular quiz. It won't count against them. Same thing with ungraded survey. You can do a quiz or survey. A survey obviously is more of what's your thought and responses versus graded quiz is obviously us trying to figure out some sort of way of them summatively showing us their mastery within skills and concepts amongst our standards and content. Again, I'll show this in a separate short screencast of how to do your assignment groups. This is where you would drop it down into formative or summative, or if you have a more structured thinking of how to grade categories, or if your school has specific categories you have to use, that would be in this part. You can shuffle the answers. That's usually a good thing, especially when students are trying to like write down answers and pass it on to friends. You can give a time limit. You can add multiple attempts. Multiple attempts, you want to make sure that the highest score, which usually this is default, is taken. So for instance, if we're looking at a 20-point quiz and they earn 9 points before, and then they take it a second time and they get 13 points will stick. You can limit the amount of times they can take the quiz over and over again. This feature is pretty cool in letting them see the responses. So in this case, they would see not only what they had marked wrong, but on the back end, you could show them the rationale behind the answers given in your quiz. You can force them to see the correct answers at a specific date and then close down when they see those answers. This is especially a good setting if you're building question banks for your quizzes. And what that question banks are basically groups of questions that you can just insert as a bank for, like, say, for instance, a final exam at the middle and high school level, where you want them to answer the same questions that were prompted to them throughout the semester, but it's randomly chosen from that bank. I'm not going to go over question banks today. That's its own separate beast. You can force them to see one question at a time. I normally do this so students can just focus on one question at a time. versus scrolling. You can require an access code. This is especially good after all the students may have taken this quiz by a certain due date, but a student needs to go back in and take the quiz. This forces the students to not be able to access the quiz. And again, allowing for you to be able to manage how things are done after a lockout due date. So that's the settings part of your quiz or test. Questions on the quiz. So when I say question bank, I'm sorry, the correct term in Canvas is question group, not a question bank. It's question group, so I apologize for that. What you're going to do today is I asked you for homework to just find a quiz. It didn't have to be online, just a paper quiz you may have had, or you can create one on the fly. We're not going to do like a whole quiz today because we only have 29 minutes left together. So what I want you to kind of do is kind of fiddle with new question. And then now kind of like, so like for instance here, you see that the drop-down menu is here for you. My philosophy behind the tag right here where it says question, number it. Because otherwise it's just going to say question. Always number the question as you add questions. You could reword them differently if you wish. Like, so for instance, if you're looking to, like for instance, if you teach a world language, instead of saying question, it can in Spanish be pregunta uno. So you could put that in there so it aligns with Spanish as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be question, you could rename it. But I want you guys to just kind of fiddle with multiple choice and true and false. Those are great. If you can create these other ones, that would be great. Just fiddle with it. Again, you have another edit window where you guys can make your questions pretty. You can bold specific responses or phrases in your question. You can use the window expander to make it bigger if you need to. You come down here and you insert the correct answers. So if you have more than one correct answer, all you do is hover over, click into, whatchamacallit. No, this is not what I'm thinking of doing. I'm sorry. Let me take a second to reset my brain really quick. All right, if you have extra possible answers, done. Okay. If you have more answers, you'll notice as you hover over to the next answer, a little green arrow pops up. If there's more than one answer, you click on the green arrow, and it'll tell you as you hover over it, click to set this answer as correct. So if you have, for instance, maybe you have a question that you ask where there is definitely one specific answer, then you'll go in and give that. Sometimes if you click the wrong answer, that's not the main specific answer, it'll give partial points. You can do that. What I was going to say is for each of this where it says answer text, and then you see this little 3 dots down here at the bottom, little underways under each correct answer. If you open this up, this is where you can get super nitty gritty and explain why this is the correct answer, or if it's the incorrect answer, tell them why it's the incorrect answer. So you can go, like, that's how deep you can go into these quizzes. You can be specific, or you can use this quiz and be a teachable moment and figure out which of the students didn't do too well on specific questions and use those for teachable moments. It's totally up to you. If you're looking to insert just information into a part of the quiz, and it doesn't have to necessarily be at the top. It could be like, for instance, for me, I use this part for passages, so the students don't have to go back and forth to a document. What I do is I go down to text, no question, and then you'll notice that it just has the edit window now where you can put text. So if you're doing passages, what you can do is, for instance, read this excerpt for question 12. That way they don't have to go back and forth into a document. And then you can put the passage in here and format it. And then you could put the next question underneath, which would be question 12 in this case. Then ask the question right underneath the passage. You could do the same thing for math equations as well. If you're a math teacher, you could input the math problem as a prompt right before the question, especially if it's a long one. If you are a teacher that's willing to accept uploads, again, try to be super mindful of your space. You can have them upload your their responses to your question. But what you can do instead is use essay question and have them take a picture. This is where it's really cool to have essay question if you're not too worried about them copying and pasting from other work, is have them insert their share link from Google Drive if they're taking pictures of their responses. Like math is a really good one for this. Maybe science if you're looking at physics or chemistry where they have to write out like the steps and formulas. They can take a picture and insert their share link here. That way when you're grading their quiz, you can just click on their share link, you know, open up their picture, and then you can see what they're doing within their responses, and then you can leave feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys about 10 minutes to work in your quizzes. Just 10 minutes. Again, this is a little different than the discussions. This is more straightforward. So just 10 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and come in here and answer some questions, starting with Melissa Martin, and see where I can go from there. So if you have questions, go ahead and ask them. Any questions that Mel didn't answer, I'll answer them. And I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Can the kids go back and review questions and answers, or once it's submitted, it's done? Not submitted like after they complete question 1, the 2. So yes, they would be able to answer they would be able to answer and then see their responses before they submit. Is that what you're asking? Before they submit, Melissa? Melissa Martin? I have a couple of Melissas in here. Yes, they can. I don't think I could do student view in this, but so what happens is, Melissa, if you can try to envision with me, when a student takes the quiz, the questions are in the middle. They would still see, the question and the responses, but then as they move forward, especially if you do one question at a time, on the right side, it would tell them question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, question 5, how many questions you have, and they're hyperlinked. So what happens is if they click on question 1, it'll hyperlink them back to question 1 in your quiz, and then they could change their answers before they submit. Once they submit, though, they cannot change their responses. So it's best practice to teach them. I have to teach them a lot in the first 3 to 4 weeks. Don't forget to check your answers one by one. I try to keep my small quizzes down to 10 questions, so it's not a whole lot of clicking back and forth. But check their responses before they click submit. So yes, they can go back in. It's just a hyperlink on the right side, and they click on the question, and it will take it back to the specific question assigned to that hyperlink. Could I paste the link of a Google Forms quiz? Is it the same as? No. So Cynthia, if you want to use your, Google Classroom quizzes, and you don't want to go through the process of copying and pasting answers and questions into Canvas, what you can do is build an assignment instead, and then you can embed it into the assignment page. That's its own separate beast and would have to be shown differently outside of today's session, because that's more of manipulating the assignment editor box versus putting it in a quiz. I hope that makes sense. Yes, Tasha. After the quiz is graded, can I make comments per each question? Also, will the kids get it back to see their response? So the question to both your questions, the answer is yes. So after you receive the quizzes, you'll go into what I said earlier, SpeedGrader, which is where you grade everything. Assignments, quizzes, anything you put up for a grade goes through SpeedGrader. In the form of quizzes, each quiz question you can leave responses to let them know. Now here's the caveat. If it's a multiple choice or anything that's completely automated and they don't have a written response, you would have to build that feedback of whether the answer was right or wrong through the this part of the quiz. So like when you're making the question, you would add the feedback by clicking on the 3 dots underneath each correct answer, and then it would open up this editing window for you to type in why this answer is correct or not. When it comes to written responses, it will give you another box underneath within the quiz area of the questions to leave feedback to the students. So my best advice is when you leave feedback to students in their quizzes or even their assignments. And SpeedGrader, and try to imagine, if you will, with me, it'll be on the right side of the screen, comes out to about 1/4 of the screen. For quizzes, you would have it will show the score on the top right area, and at the bottom there's always an assignment comment box. You would leave feedback in that comment box also. So there are ways to leave feedback in a quiz, but you would have to teach the students how to go back into their grades and physically find where they would say, for instance, leaving feedback in assignments that are not quizzes. How would I find that? If it's a quiz, how would I find that? I can't show that to you guys in this webinar series because I don't have students to do that with. I would have to build like a whole nother course and have actual mock students in it to do so. I will be asking for help with that. So if anyone's willing to help do that with me, what I'll do is I can write a letter for your NEPF saying that you helped collaborate with me to create content for professional development, which is under your professional responsibility standards. And then we'll go from there. So that's, again, a different beast. Let's see. And I'm sorry if I skip over questions. I'm trying to get them as much as I can. I'm looking to see if Mel also answered them. Ryan, I answered that. Can you just drop a quiz in from Google? You would have to do that as an assignment. I can't show that to you today because that detracts from the goals that we're doing today. Is the correct answer always put first? You can manipulate them and move them around, I believe. Okay, no, you don't have to do that. You can always unclick it and then click something else. So notice that now when I take my cursor away from this question bank, or excuse me, questions answer bank, you'll notice that it says possible answer and correct answer. If you want to turn that back on as possible answer, you would click that. But again, this is just multiple choice. So we would have to go up to, where is it? Multiple answers. And then click which one it was. So for instance, and then who asked me that question? Suzanne. For instance, if you're working from like a paper quiz, or if you're copying and pasting from a quiz you have in Google Drive, if it's A, B, C, or D, you don't have to necessarily have it to be A. You can just unclick it, and then after you put the answers in, you can click the green arrow next to the correct answer, and it'll reset it to that specific answer. Yes, you guys are submitting quizzes to me. Did I not ask for that in here? I did not. So I have to build another one of these. All right, so I will go ahead and post the Padlet for your quiz URL. Again, make sure you give me your first and last name and your quiz URL after you save it. Again, in order to get your quiz URL, you just save or save and publish, and then come to the top up here in your web address bar, highlight and copy and paste this whole, this whole URL link and put it into the Padlet with your first and last name. I'm reading through comments, I'm sorry. Yeah, Michelle Freeland, unfortunately, you would have to copy and paste, basically retype everything over student consumable. How should I give credit, or is this not allowed? Okay, so technically we're not supposed to do that, but if you do that, it would be good to give credit. So I would say, in order to cover yourself, under the instructions part of your quiz, and it's loading slowly, I apologize. Like writing your instructions and then down at the bottom, maybe like italicized and maybe in smaller font size, pulled from Macmillan workbook pages 71 through 72, and then attribute that way. And then if that's not okay, beg for forgiveness later. Because like you said, it is bought and purchased for your school. You should be covered, but you should attribute as well. So that's a good question. How do you put multiple answers on a table in a question? For example, I use verb conjugation, but they fill in multiple choice. Once I was able to paste the table in, how do I create the most? So they wouldn't be able to fill it into, so Ryan Gorley asked, asked, how do you put multiple answers on a table in a question? For example, I use a verb conjugation table for them to fill out with multiple conjugations as one question. I was able to paste the table in from Word, Microsoft Word, but how do I create the multiple answer spaces? So for the question, let me go ahead and open this up really quick. For the question, you wouldn't necessarily be able to get them to fill it up here. What you would have to do is go down to, I would say, multiple answers. So they need to do fill in the blank. So it'd be fill in multiple blanks. So let's see what that looks like. I normally don't answer this. Answer variables above. So there's two things you can do with this, Ryan. There is, you can create this, you can create the table as an information. So remember going down to text and no question. So you can create the table in here, and then at the bottom, hyperlink a Google Drive document that forces them to make a copy. And then for the question underneath, you would create essay question, and then they would copy and paste their, basically their worksheet of the chart as the share link into this essay question. Does that make sense, Ryan? Awesome. Okay, so that's one workaround. Or the more in-depth approach, and that's the nice way to put it, I would say the more annoying approach, because it's multi-layered, is you teach them what you want to see in these questions, but if you do that, you would have to use that specific style consistently throughout the course, so it's not changed up all the time. The easiest way for me, I believe, would be just force them to copy the chart, fill it in, and then have them submit the share link as their answer. Again, there are a lot of questions coming in. I'm checking to see if Mel's answering them. Classic quiz, Jody Jensen. I'm sorry, I didn't see that until now. Can we upload or link Canvas website? Yes. So what you can do is you can link out if you want, because then you're giving credit where it's due without saying this is mine. Unless you did create it, then that's different. But if you're, for instance, So like yesterday, I showed you guys how I created a scavenger hunt worksheet where I sent students to specific links and I asked them guided questions for the information I wanted them to look for. You can do the same thing in here. So for instance, you could say, for question 12, please review the following link to answer to the best of your ability. I usually say that to kind of like let off the steam of pressure. And then you could give, like, so for instance, if you were making them watch a video, I promise I do know how to spell video URL, and then you copy and paste and make sure that the link is hyperlinked. And then this would be text no question. And then question 12 would go under there. Does that make sense, Danielle? Let's see. Okay, good. All right, so ooh, so Tasha did bring up a good thing also. You could also insert images as well into your question. So like, for instance, world languages at MPLA, sometimes they use pictures to have students write out responses for speaking and writing. You can do that also for students to create a written response, again, using essay question to give a written response. Correct answer and possible answers is where we put the multiple choice options correct. So Cynthia asked again, I'm sorry, I read that out loud. Let me answer Cynthia's question after I reread it. Correct answer and possible answers is where we put the multiple choice options correct. Yes, but that does not mean that that only pertains to just multiple choice. You can also do that with fill in the blank. Anything that has multiple answers that you're giving them to choose from, or if they're allowed to, like for instance, for fill in the blank, they don't all, unless it's like, for instance, academic vocabulary, they may not word it the same way. You can give possible answers as to how it could be worded, and then they could get credit for it in that way. So it's not necessarily just to multiple choice. If they have fill in the blanks, and for instance, fill in the blank, it's case sensitive. So maybe maybe they didn't capitalize a proper noun, and you're not looking at proper noun like capitalization for that specific question, and you want to give them credit for it. So like for instance, Washington DC would be in proper noun title format, but then the next answer could be Washington DC, all lowercase, without the comma. Another one could be Washington DC with without the periods between D and C. So you can get creative with how you want to accept your answers for fill in the blank. And then it'll allow that to generate full points based on the possibilities of answers. Jamie Cooperwriter, can we preview our quizzes anywhere? Jamie Cooperwriter, can you expand your question as to what do you mean anywhere, like outside of Canvas? Is that what you're asking? So Tasha, the login for CCSD is actually not canvas.ccsd.net. It's actually ccsd.instructure.com. But yes, all students log into ccsd.instructure.com to access Canvas through CCSD. Can I put the discussion tablet up again? Yes, hold on one second. Okay, so discussion tablet. Okay, so Patricia, I put the discussion tablet link in the chat screen again. We are now at 11:55, so it looks like I'm at the end of almost all my questions. Oh, Terry Hacker, I have the first question in okay, but it will not say subsequent questions. What am I doing wrong? You saved your question. So when you click on new questions, it's letting you, is it letting you pop up new questions, Terry? Because it doesn't save it right away. You have to do the questions and then you scroll down to save. But you can click on update question and it'll save it in the back. Oh, Jamie, yes. So that's the difference between save and publish and save. Save, just the save button itself is basically you save in a draft. Or if you did save and publish and you want to not have students see it, so I'm going to save and publish this blank quiz. And then you see how right here it has a green published. If you hover over it, says unpublish. You can unpublish, but then there's a preview screen right here. So when you have your quiz done, if you want to see how it looks, you can click on preview, and then it'll show you the instructions, and then because I have the questions, it doesn't say take quiz, and then it'll push them forward. So this is the student view that you have access to after you create your quiz and you save it or save and publish. Heather, I would have to physically see what you're doing. If you want to stay after, I can try to troubleshoot with you. If you're not a PU, not. Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay, Stacy, if you use the excerpt for questions, the excerpt disappears and then they have their questions. Okay, you make sure the excerpt is visible for the questions they need. So yes, what you can do is if you're doing one question at a time, you can actually just build the excerpt into the question because you have the means to do that and the editing box. So when you're in the editing box, what you can do is read the following excerpts before answering question 12. Please see question 12 below the excerpt. So that way you're guiding them to let them know that the question is at the bottom of this excerpt. Then you could insert excerpt, then insert question. So you can actually build it into the same question, so you're able to keep it together, especially if you're doing one question at a time. Recordings can be integrated into quizzes. You can record a question for them to listen to, and they have to submit a recording for oral response. You can do that, but again, just remember, you only have 500 megabytes in Canvas. So it kind of sounds like you are a world language teacher, Ryan. Is that what this is? Okay. So for something like that, I would suggest going into looking at, I'm sorry, I have a kid knocking on my door. Hold on one second. I apologize for that. So my best advice is to use something like Flipgrid for that, so you're not using up your course 500 megabytes of lovely space in that course. Does that make sense? Okay. And we do, our world languages at NVLA do that, but it does take up a lot of space. And then you would have to think about, do you want to give up space for recordings in order to take away from pictures and images that are probably necessary into the into what you need for your lessons and assignments? That would probably be a self-discussion, kind of like do a pro and cons list for that. So we are at 12 o'clock. Go ahead and save your work. Again, I have the Padlet for the quiz link, please. I put it again into the chat screen so you guys can give that to me. Mel, you know what? We just take a precaution at MVLA because of how much is going on. There's so much that goes on in Canvas with world languages. They do it only in summative assessments, but also a lot of the summative assessment, a lot of the speaking and listening for MVLA courses are in a different, unfortunately, they have to work with 2 learning management systems at MVLA. So we have not physically been able to track if that's the case in world language courses. Terry Buhecker, where do I put the login ID? Login ID for what? Oh, okay, never mind. Mel answered that question. Thank you, Mel. But in palette response, why are there so many blue pictures with the login screen? So that means you guys cannot see it because you don't have access to it, and that's it's not a public link, so it doesn't pop up. Like for instance, YouTube, when we put in a YouTube link, usually it pops up the YouTube thumbnail. It doesn't do that because these are private links. They're shut down and closed. So I won't be able to, a lot of people probably hit enter or something happened. That's all. It doesn't matter if I see that or not. Let's see, let's take a picture. Yeah, so I'm able to see this because I'm added into this course. As long as I can see it, that's all that matters, Melissa. That way I can give you credit. All right, we are at 12 o'clock. Let's go ahead and answer this in your Google form responses. Which of these choices given for quiz question types would you consider utilizing in your courses? This one did not require you to do a Padlet. I'm just curious to see how many different types of questions would be used by teachers. The simple check all that apply to your responses. And then just come back to the live screen session when you're done. If you could let me know done into the chat screen, that would be great. If Terry's willing to stay online after this, I want to let people go because we are running a little bit over. And then I'll help. All right. I see a lot of dones coming in, so let's go ahead and move forward. You've already done that. Go ahead and answer the next question also. I was supposed to have you guys do that earlier. Outside of normal type questions, I think I already had you guys answer this. If you didn't do so already, and then provide this answer into the Padlet. This Padlet specifically asks you guys at a middle school, elementary school, and high school level, just give an idea. I'm curious as to which ones would work, at least from your expert point of view in your grade level, what would work for your quizzes. That's fine, Michelle. Just to let you guys know, if you guys are still working after I close out live, I'm not asking for those to be submitted to me right away. If you want to go back and wait until the recording comes or until you have everything perfectly the way you want to submit it, feel free to submit the Google form later. That is fine. All right, as people are finishing up their responses in their Google forms, so tomorrow we're going to be looking at the scope of live sessions. So this is not necessarily going to be a full in Canvas. This is going to be a little bit more outside of Canvas. I'll show you guys how to set up the assignments for live sessions, but this is going to be more of a looking at Google Drive forms to create your scope and all that good stuff. And then how to basically look at utilizing the components of an effective lesson plan to guide 1 hour of instruction that you would record. And then day 5, which I'm moving again to Saturday, I'll officially put that out when I send my email out when I get the video recording uploaded into YouTube. We're going to discuss specific things like exploring how to implement contact in a blended online learning classroom, looking at utilizing Canvas itself. So for instance, you guys have got your toes wet. Some of you have been bold enough to go above and beyond what I've showed you and kind of fiddled around in Canvas. share what what you envision happening moving forward, how to implement contact. I think I copied that twice. I'm sorry. Discuss possible concerns and resolutions in utilizing Canvas as our learning management system, and teaching in the blended and online learning environment. So tomorrow, again, we're doing what are live sessions? How do I create them? And digging deeper into creating interactivity with live sessions. Go ahead and take a picture of this or write this down. I'll leave this up for a moment. Your homework for tonight, if you choose to join me tomorrow, is to find a short lesson you have taught previously that can be done from beginning to end within an hour. I want you to rough draft the flow of how you envision it from beginning to end on paper. And then if there are coordinating activities or worksheets, make sure you have those handy. I'm going to show you guys how to build worksheets in Google Classroom so students know like where to put their information versus you having your questions. Again, that would take a little bit of teaching in practice and how to utilize them on your end, but students will be grateful to have worksheets in this manner so they can turn it in digitally. I know we will also, so we can minimize germ contact from our students, to be able to do that in our live sessions. Also, having worksheets like that in your live session ensures that they're engaged with you the full time that they're in that session. Do we have any other questions for me? Go ahead and put them in the chat screen. I see lots of thank yous. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Creative Commons. That is your question for me, right, Stacy? Wolf, Creative Commons. If you guys do not, thank you for joining me today, and I will see you guys bright and early at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you for joining me, and have a great rest of your day.